All right, welcome everybody to another episode of Talking Buffalo, your weekday daily driver for Buffalo Sports Talk and more. My name is Patrick Moran. Thank you so much for watching, for listening, however you consume Talking Buffalo. I truly appreciate you guys very, very much. A big shout out to our sponsors, Sunny Reds 1841, Abbott Road, just down the way from Highmark Stadium. And I'll tell you what, folks, if you don't know this already, it is probably the best, and I mean it, the best dinner special going anywhere in town now. You could get 20 wings and a large pizza for $45. To get food of that quality at a place like Sunny Reds, you're not going to do better than that. And if going there is not enough, you don't want to sit down, you don't want to eat there, you just want to get the food to go, you could do that. You could actually get takeout there. So, man, you cannot beat that deal. Still a little bit of time left on the nice sunny outside patio, although it's starting to get a little bit cold here. But anyway, make sure you guys go check out Sunny Reds. All right, this is our Friday episode, and I'm joined right now by my good buddy, a recurring guest over at the Buffalo Sports Collective, my man PK. What's going on, buddy? How you doing?
That deal sounds pretty good. $45. Me and my wife were just at Mississippi Muds yesterday, and it was like $42 alone, and we didn't get a full slice of pizza. So,
jeez, yeah, it really. You know what? 5 years ago, to say that would be a good deal would be silly, but in this economy, especially since COVID, the way wings have went up, it is. It really is a great deal, and it's great food too. You know, you could go somewhere and get $30 for all that, and if it tastes like shit, you're not gonna enjoy it. But Sunny Reds has got some of the best eats anywhere. So yeah, for sure. So here's the deal, folks. We're going to spend some time today talking about 6 guys that I think going into this Bills preseason finale at Tampa on Saturday are fighting for their jobs. I think for the most part, most of the roster set, but there's still a handful of dudes that's got a lot to play for on Saturday. We're going to talk about that. I'm going to sneak 1 or 2 other guys in that I originally didn't even tell you about, PK, that I was thinking about in real time. I'm like, you know what? They probably do as well. So we'll talk about that. I want to get to some Cole Bishop stuff with you today, a few other things as well, but we got to start here. So the deal when you do these podcasts, if you're not doing it at night and you're not doing it live at night, things happen from the time you either plan to record or sometimes when you do record to when people listen to this show. Hopefully, everybody will be listening to this sometime on Friday morning, or maybe if you're watching on the video side, because the video usually drops the night before, it'll be up later on Thursday night. But regardless, kind of some uncertainty going on as we record this edition of Talking Buffalo right now. And that's because at practice, technically the last Bills training camp practice of the season, with the preseason ending here on Saturday, a potential significant injury yet again to the Bills. Starting cornerback Trey White went down. Let me read a tweet. This was from Matt Perino, who was at practice and covering it. This is what he said, and this is all we know so far. He said, Tre'Davious White went down during 11-on-11 today and needed teammates to help him hobble off the field. He was able to walk into the tunnel and looked ahead to the locker room with trainers. He then reappeared in the tunnel before he was carted off by Matt Perino. Now, Joe Biscaglia also shared something that I think is important as well in terms of context. He noted that it is a very long walk from the training room where practice is over back to the locker room. So don't automatically assume the worst because he left eventually with the cart. First thoughts, initial thoughts. Again, this just happened a short time ago before we started recording. The injury bug to this team happens yet again at practice, by the way, not during these preseason games. It's practice that is really taking effect on some of these players. But what are your initial thoughts when you hear that?
I think all the built-up injury luck that they've had the past few years is hitting them all at once. It's also a position that you just can't lose another guy, especially a starter, after Harrison went down earlier in camp. It's just, it's deep until you start losing your top two of your top three guys. It's not a good look. I guess it's good that it happened while preseason games are still happening, so there's enough time to heal up. Hopefully it's not anything serious, that it can heal up in the 16, 17 days until opening day. But it's not a good look and not a good feeling when a guy that was having a really good camp and a really good preseason, I know he didn't play much in preseason, if at all. I would have to go back and look at the snap counts, but it definitely is going to be testing their depth chart a ton in the cornerback position, where it was already a bit shaky after the top three. And like I mentioned, the top 2 or 3 are already down.
You know, I said about a week or so ago on this show, because the injuries throughout camp have been really annoying. But Max Hairston, who's, they said he's going to miss a month, and we're kind of getting close where hopefully he'll start ramping up. And Khalil Shakir, of course, has now missed a handful of weeks, but he should be back. Should be back for the opener. What I said at the time was, as annoying as these injuries were, if you would have told me the day before training camp started, would you take this? Like, with these injuries that happen, would you take this, or would you wipe that slate clean? Maybe you have better injury luck and some of these guys don't get hurt at all. But on the other hand, you could have somebody tear their ACL. You could have season-ending type of injuries to a starter, whether it's in a preseason cameo, whether it's at training camp practice. So I was like, you know what? I would take this. If I would sign up for it ahead of time if I was given those two options. However, if this injury ends up being significant, I'm not sure I would say that anymore, because now you've lost your top 2 corners to play alongside Christian Benford, possibly for not just week 1 against Baltimore, but maybe multiple weeks into the season. Who knows right now? And I'll wait to see what the status is with Trey White before I activate even like the tiniest bit of panic mode here. But between Max Hairston and now Trey White hurt, and Sean McDermott, clear as day, and I mean clear as day right now, PK, he is not ready to say Cole Bishop is my starter alongside Taylor Rapp. I mean, he went out of his way to not say that earlier this week, just a couple days ago. This secondary is far from less than ideal, because now you're talking about the potential, and here's a spoiler alert, Dane Jackson and Jamarcus Ingram are on the list of players that I think were fighting for their job, that we kind of planned it out for this episode before this happened. Now one of those 2 guys are going to probably be in line to start week 1 potentially anyway. So they're still playing for something. Now it's going to be who looks better to start. But you're looking at a secondary, PK, potentially with Dane Jackson as your CB2. And hell, man, the way things are operating with Sean, who knows? Maybe DeMar Hamlin back there as well. So DeMar Hamlin, Dane Jackson, you want to talk about a secondary that doesn't, it's not thriving with the athleticism. There you go right there. This is not ideal at all.
Yeah, and even on top of Hairston, it was a luxury to have Tre'Davious White when you did that. Okay, you can manage the Hairston injury because Trey White was having a great camp already, and you didn't have to push and rush Hairston back. Again, we don't know the injury of what Trey White is right now, but
right.
If it is more serious, now are you looking to Hairston and trying to push him further back or further forward and just going, okay, you're going to have to learn on the fly here because maybe Dane Jackson or Ingram aren't cutting it. And Hairston has that more upside across from Benford. Now you're looking at it, go, okay, you're going to have to learn your rookie year on the fly here. If you're back, hopefully by week 1, if not by week 2, 3, 4, if Tre'Davious White's injury is more longer term, then you're going, okay, this rookie had a week or 2 of training camp, didn't get any preseason snaps. His first snap is going to be in an NFL live game that matters. It takes that luxury out of it that you had in Trey White and is putting their rookie right face forward of it. So you're going to need a Dane Jackson or an Ingram to step up and be somebody that we have not seen them be in the past. And I know Dane Jackson started a couple years ago with Buffalo on the outside, and you had prime time Tre'Davious White, but I honestly think that Benford might be a better Tre'Davious White than Tre'Davious White was in his prime. So you do have that to lean on you, but man, he's years older than he was when he was a CB2. It's you're going to need somebody to step up, and it could be them rushing Hairston back quicker than maybe they even want him to be and taking a primetime role, which, I mean, it could be a good thing or a bad thing. Maybe he learns on the fly and comes in and is like, okay, we don't even need to rush Trey White back. He's learning on the fly. He's good. Or it could be an absolute nightmare situation.
I'm glad you brought that up with Max Harrison. I'm going to circle back to that in just a second. To your point where you said, Benford might be even better than prime Trey White. Maybe he is. Maybe he's the same, whatever. Here's what I could tell you. They're going to, and it was Trey White. I said this before this potential injury today, whether it's Trey White, whether it's Dane Jackson, whether it's Max Hairston, whether it's Dorian Strong, it does not matter. Whoever it is going to get tested a lot. So you're not hiding anybody at CB2 because they're not going to throw at Christian Benford all that much when you got those other guys on the other side. So, I was a little concerned. Trey White's kind of had a wishy-washy camp. I know a lot of people have raved about how amazing he's looked, and he definitely has at times. But in my personal opinion, I watched him on TV in the opener like everyone else did, and I went to probably half the camp practices. Saw a lot of good things, but there were also some elements to his game: speed, running, intermediate, and longer routes. It looked a little bit shaky there. But anyway, my point is he's going to get tested, or whoever it is going to get tested. So you're not hiding them. Back to your point about Max Hairston, if this Trey White injury turns out to be anything, I think it affects Max Hairston, and here's why. The biggest reason why. If Trey White's healthy and there's no issue and he's good to go, I think it's almost a lock that they start Max Hairston on IR to begin the season.
Yep.
They designate him to return. For those who don't know, if you are put on IR before the season with a designation to return, and you can have two guys before the season that you do that with, that means he comes back. However, he misses the first 4 games. And it's not even that he misses the first 4 games. He cannot practice during that either. He could come to the building. He could go to meetings. He could work out, but he cannot practice. And I was still like, well, all right. There's a little urgency to get him back, get him all the way back physically. So after 4 weeks, he comes back, he practices, ramps up for probably a week or two, and maybe around week 6, week 7, you start to see him sprinkled in on the field. I felt like that was kind of a semi-luxury without knowing where he's at health-wise right now. However, if this Trey White injury is significant, then maybe you don't put Max Hairston on IR. Even if you say, you know what, I know he's not going to be ready to play for, say, 4 weeks from now. And now you got to roster him as one of the 53 before the season, even though you know he's not going to be able to play the first couple games, just because now you don't want him to miss the first 4 weeks of practice. You want him practicing earlier. So even if he could just be limited, say, going into the Baltimore game and in the week 2, and then maybe week 3, you get him back at something like that. So where it would have been a little more of a luxury where you can, A, keep an important roster spot, and B, not have to rush him back. Now maybe that changes, and you got to roster him, even though you know he's not going to be of any value to you for at least the first few weeks. You get what I'm saying there with Max? I feel like this could potentially kind of change how they handle him.
Yeah, and that's a great point. On top of the Hairston aspect of it, if you were originally thinking like you were, and I'm fully with you, that they likely were going to put him on the IR designated return, miss the first 4 weeks, that opens a roster spot. If now Trey White's injury is more like, okay, a 3-week thing, they want him in that 3 weeks, so they're not going to put him on the IR designated return. That means you got 2 guys that you're carrying in that you might not have week 1, and you're also losing that roster spot that you might have had with Hairston. So you're losing even more depth there with 2 guys that might not be fully healthy going into week 1. It's not a good situation, and I think everybody's holding their breath that this injury isn't as bad as it might be, and they're just hoping, okay, it's just nicked up, older veteran, don't need to push it. Get it all checked out. We still got time.
Ankle, a couple weeks. It feels to me, not knowing anything, and this could sound really dumb by the time people listen to this, but to me, the realistic best case is maybe he turned his ankle and, he's gone for a couple of weeks. At this point with him, it feels like that's the best case scenario. And again, and it's impossible to speculate because A, we don't know the extent of Trey White's injury. B, we don't know exactly where Max Harrison is in terms of where he's at. They still, Trey White could be out for the season, hypothetically, of course, we hope not. But even if he was, that doesn't automatically mean that Max Harrison still doesn't get IR'd. If they feel, he's not going to be ready to have a full practice until week 4 anyway, then they would value that roster spot even more. So anyway, a lot of possibilities. I'll tell you though, it's not funny. I was going to say here's the funny thing, but it's actually nothing funny about it at all. All the debate, hey, the starters should have played more in the preseason. We might be a little bit rusty. All that talk, or, all the, I'm not risking getting an injury to anybody in the preseason. I'm not letting my starters get out there. They might get hurt. It's not worth the risk, Yet 2025 here this year is going to go down ultimately as the year where all of the significant Bills injuries have occurred during practice. It's all been practice, man. Max Harrison, a non-contact injury at practice. Khalil Shakir rolls his ankle at the blue and red scrimmage at Highmark Stadium. Trey White got hurt today at practice. Cole Bishop did something to his quad I was at that one, at practice. Terrell Bernard, I think he had a calf injury. He misses a week and a half at camp, and it all happened at practice. Balin Spector, who was having a really good camp, he got hurt and eventually released at practice, just to name a few. Curtis Samuel's been dinged up. Elijah Moore. None of this other than Jordan Hancock, whose injury is, knock on wood, not too serious here. PK, this is incredible. All this shit's happening at practice, man.
Yeah, it makes me have egg in my face because I never want any of the star players to play in preseason, and it turns out it doesn't matter. You could still get hurt everywhere, and I knew that going in, but it's just like, man, just cherry on top of everything. It's just, I don't know how you fix this issue, or if there's even a issue. I think it's just dumb luck, or dumb bad luck, I should say, that they just keep getting hurt at practice. Like I said, start off the bat. It's just, it seems like all the injury good luck that they've had the previous years are all there. The Piper came to collect right now. And it's just like, man, but like you said from the get-go, pending what Trey White's injury is and pending what Harrison's injury, if he is coming back well, there isn't any major injuries going on through there. So I will take that with a little positivity that there's not any major injuries for the entire season. Like Chargers lost their left tackle for the entire season.
Right. Rashawn Slater.
We haven't had any of that yet. So I guess a little good news on a dark Thursday night.
And I'm really glad that you called it what it is, which is just dumb luck with injuries. It's not a lack of conditioning. Now, look, if player after player is going down with calf injuries or sore backs or things like that, then you start to wonder, are these guys doing the right things, at workouts? But that's not the case, man. Again, Max Harrison got hurt his knee in a drill. Khalil Shakir, by his own teammate, got rolled up on his ankle. You know what I mean? It's the Trey White. I don't even know what happened to Trey White today. I just know he got hurt. I don't know how it happened or anything, but well, at least
what I would say though, if you're a street free agent, stop signing in Buffalo. Every single one that they've been bringing in lately ends up being injured and done. So I think there's word going around the league: don't sign with Buffalo for a while here.
Yeah, I lost you there for a quick second momentarily. Sorry, I lost you there for a quick second, but I got the gist of what you were saying. It's wild. I mean, the poor wide receiver breaks his collarbone. The running back gets cut one day, injured, waived, whatever. Literally one day after signing, I was like, God damn, that is crazy. And look, let's not get too doomy and gloomy here. I kind of feel like we're giving off those vibes right now. But hey, with all these injuries, it is what it is. But we could be looking at a secondary by week 3, week 4 that features one of the better corners in the NFL in Benford, a first-round rookie in Max Harrison who looks really exciting. Cole Bishop starts, and he's playing pretty well. And Taylor Rapp, well, if he's not knocking his own teammates out, is a perfectly fine safety in this league. And a better front four and linebackers healthy in front of him. So there's lots of things, let's not throw the season away right now, and we're not trying to. I'm just saying those vibes kind of get off. But anyway, let's jump in what we originally were going to talk about to begin with here. The Bills are playing let me ask you this. How much, Now you don't do this every day. You and Phil have a podcast. Bills, Sabres, Bandits. Have you been watching the preseason games? The first two. Have you been busy? Have you watched the games?
I watched both. I missed the first quarter of the first one because Spectrum sucks. But other than that, yeah, I've seen them all. Unfortunately, I watched the whole last Sunday one stupidly. I was up till what, 11 o'clock?
Yeah. That was brutal.
Yeah, only people that create content probably were still awake for that game,
or taking notes and doing live shows after, like I did. That was one of the least fun live shows I think that I've ever done. In fact, we didn't even wait till the game was over. Now that I think about it, we went on at 11 o'clock. I said, "Screw this, man! I'm not waiting for this stupid game." But anyway, at least you had some starters playing, or this game here. Do you plan on watching this game Saturday? This is going to be third string city. This is going to be 20. Runs in between the tackles and let's get out of here. A couple play action passes off in the flats. I think that's going to be the extent of what you see. A lot of punting, special team stuff. I'm going to watch, but I'm not locking in. I ain't sure as shit ain't doing a live show afterwards. Do you plan on watching Saturday?
Yeah, I'll be watching just because there are some, which we'll get into, there are some positions that are still up for grabs. Not much, but this will be kind of the last test that you get to see of some of these players to find out really who's going to make that 53 on Tuesday.
Fair enough. And also, what the hell is better shit that we got to do anyway? We ain't got nothing better to do. So we'll be watching it anyway. Who the hell am I kidding, man? All right. So like I said, I identified, I think that there's 6 players at least that really have, they still have a great opportunity to make this team, or they have a great opportunity or a bad opportunity to get cut from this team, depending on how they play. It's coming down to the wire for a handful of guys, and I'm actually going to sneak on a couple at the end as well that I originally, I didn't tell you about. But before we get to that, I do think that there are a handful of guys that I feel like the ship has sailed already for them, whether it's a numbers game, whether it's their performance at camp, whether it's how they've looked in the preseason. I just think that they're going into this game, they're going to play, but I feel like they're minus a rash of injuries during the game, which maybe they put them, back into the mix. As things stand right now, I think they're done. And we don't have to talk much about a lot of these guys, but one of them I do want to talk about a little bit. Mike White. This was a legitimate in training camp quarterback 2 battle. I thought early on, I actually thought Mike White looked better than Mitch Trubisky. I thought that the upside of Mike White was better than Mitch Trubisky. I think the arm talent of Mike White is better than Mitch Trubisky, but he, near the back end of camp, looked awful and just brutal. And I mean brutal against the Bears. And as bad as it was, when people watch it live, when you go back and you watch like the All-22 film, it was even worse. He was making some terrible throws, receiver wrong reads, holding the ball too long once when he got sacked. Now, look, he had a shitty line in front of him. That could be unfair to him as well. But just a really bad performance. And if you're going to take the job from Mr. Trubisky, you got to take the job. If it's a tie or you're not playing better, I don't see how they don't just stick with Mitch Trubisky for another. Do you agree with that? Do you think like Mike White's toast already right now, barring if Mitch staying healthy?
Yeah, I mean, after the first preseason game, I actually gave the edge to Mike White. And then I heard he did horrible during the joint practice, and we saw what happened on Sunday night. I do think, you said it perfectly. You have to not just outperform Mitch Trubisky, but like he also, to me, had to perform poorly. If he was just, even steady and Mike White was still playing better, I still think they would give the edge to Mitch Trubisky. But he just kind of fell off a cliff after that first game. And I do agree. It will be interesting to see if he's willing and if they even do offer him a practice squad spot, because you would know the playbook, or do you still lean with Buechele? And it'll be interesting to see, because you want 3 quarterbacks, but is it going to be White that is going to be the practice squad guy? But yeah, I think it's Trubisky. Pending any type of injury, it's his spot.
I agree. I would be surprised if they don't try to get Mike White on the practice squad. Now, maybe there'll be a team out there that wants him to be the QB2 and he would leave. But I don't see that happening. So I think he'll be here on the practice squad a week from now. Two linebackers, Olafosio, who was a fifth-round pick last year, and Keontae Jenkins, an undrafted free agent who had a decent amount of buzz actually coming into this summer for the Bills. And it just hasn't happened. So I think the Bills keep five linebackers, and four of them are set in stone. The starters, Andreessen, Dorian Williams at your four. They're going to keep five. The opportunity has been there with Shaq Thompson being out for the past couple weeks with yet another calf injury or whatever the hell is going on with him. I think it's a calf. These guys just haven't taken advantage of opportunities. Jenkins, I've seen him out there, but I haven't seen him make plays. I'm talking about camp too, as much as the preseason. All of Foshio has been running with the threes all along. Like, it didn't matter. Like, when Balen Spector was still, doesn't matter who was here, he was not getting any real run at all with these linebackers, except for the third team. Kind of saw that. He was playing at the end of last week's preseason game as well. So, I don't know, man. I almost feel like even if Shaq Thompson, and I think Shaq Thompson's the fifth linebacker, by the way, but even if he wasn't, I still don't think either of these guys would be making the team anyway. I think they'd go outside the organization before one of these guys end up on the 53. Just disappointing from them, dude.
Yeah, I agree, especially Olafosio. I think he had some buzz last year on some people thinking, okay, this year he could make a run for a more stable depth position. But yeah, I don't think either of them have really done enough to establish anything. And I think with Shaq Thompson, yes, he might have been injured, but he has that track record of what he is and what he can be that's more reliable to be a fifth linebacker on this team that can come in and a pinch. The other two, I don't know if they've earned that trust and, thought that they could be that role player if they need him to be. So I do agree. I think those two are on the chopping block as well.
Yeah, and I think one of them will probably end up on the practice squad. Yeah. That Joe Charlo dude from Army. Have you been watching Hard Knocks?
He's been fun to watch.
So you did watch it, man. Yeah, I think he's got an opportunity, maybe not to make the 53, but to land on the practice squad. So I can 100%. See maybe one of those guys at most being on the practice squad. Another dude, and look, I want to be clear, he wasn't making this team anyway unless someone in front of him got hurt, but Zach Davidson has had a bad preseason, and now I think him even being on the practice squad could potentially be in jeopardy. They might go to lot two, the undrafted rookie before him. So there's that. KJ Hamler, it's not that he's done really anything wrong. I just think he's a little too far down on the pecking order. Like, he's like that seventh or eighth receiver. He's like the second or third kick returner, punt returner. You add that all up, and he's been fun. He's made plays when he's had opportunities. He's been a big hit on HBO, but I think the ship sailed for him. And Frank Gore, nothing he's done wrong. In fact, he's played well. Just, James Cook not holding out and starting the season in Buffalo, the contract situation getting done. Frank Gore is not making this team, obviously. Maybe he plays for another team, though, on Saturday. We'll see. Then the last guy, that I don't want to ask you for your thoughts on this because this is surprising. And if you would have told me a couple months ago we would be including this guy, I would have been like, what the hell? Derek Forrest. I was excited about this guy, and I know you were too. I remember us having some conversations about him and saying, you know what, this is a dude who low-key could end up being in the mix to be a starter, especially if Cole Bishop got hurt or faltered. It would be Forrest over DeMar Hamlin. Well, that has absolutely not happened. He talked about running with the threes. He's literally been running with the threes from day one at camp through now, and it seems like he's going to go play on Saturday, and then he's probably going to be, maybe he goes back on the practice squad, but he certainly feels like he's going to be looking for another job, ain't it?
Yeah, that's one of the disadvantages of what I've learned the past 4.5 years of doing this is when you're talking amongst friends, if you're wrong, you get made fun of then. If you're wrong doing this kind of stuff, there's documentation and there's words out there of, yeah, you said this and you got it dead wrong. Yeah, I'm dead wrong on this one. I also thought that he would be pushing for a starter spot, that would be pushing Cole Bishop there, and that if Cole Bishop wasn't starting, he was the one that was going to take his spot. And he just hasn't shown anything that shows like he's worthy of even a roster spot. And I do agree there might be another team out there that would want his services on the 53, but I think at the very I don't even know if they're going to use a spot on the practice squad for him right now. He's just I can't recall anything this entire time that I've completely even forgot he was on the team, to be honest with you. So it's just he hasn't made an imprint on this team that I think his spot is just destined to be chopped, and
Yeah.
it stinks because I was really high on him coming in. He's really the only player that they brought in for any type of competition in that room, and it just didn't work out.
And he's playing very little special teams.
Yeah.
And that tells me that he's definitely not in the plans. I think it would be a bigger surprise at this point if he made the practice squad than it is him getting cut from the 53 by next Tuesday, which at this point I feel is a formality. Anyway, all right, let's take a real quick break. Come back on the other side, and we'll get into some guys who, man, they got everything to play for as far as I'm concerned on Saturday. All right, we're back here with PK from the Buffalo Sports Collective, talking some Buffalo Bills. As we've been recording this, and let me just, be transparent here. It's about 4:30 p.m. on Thursday, trying to find, some potential news going on. We try. I thought circle the wagons. All right, they're being funny about it here, man. With sources, they say sources has confirmed that the Bills secondary is effed if the Bills lose Trey for an extended period of time. Well, at least they're having some fun with themselves, I guess. Hey, that's cool though. But anyway, let's get into some guys who I do think have an awful lot to play for on Saturday. And I want to start with Tyrell Shavers. And I got to say, I'm still confused by him. And it's not because of him. It's because of Curtis Samuel. And it's because of Elijah Moore. It's because of, do the Bills keep 5 or 6 receivers? Plus, there's another dude in the mix who I'm going to get to in a few minutes there. It's like, put it this way. I don't think Tyrell Shavers has done anything to not make this team. I feel like from training camp, the preseason, he has earned his keep. I don't know if it matters, though, but what I do feel like I know is that him having another impressive game, I don't care who it's against, on Saturday is going to make that decision harder. And I think if he has another impressive game, if he hasn't gotten to this point already, PK, if the Bills decide to try to release him in hopes that they could get him back and maybe stick him on the practice squad and see how things play out with a few other things, that somebody might claim him. I don't know, man. What do you think? I feel like he's right on the cusp. I'm just not quite sure where it's going to go.
Yeah, with Samuel coming back and practicing and the good comments that came out Thursday about him, and, really they're not going to be saving any money between cutting Moore or Samuel. And it would be very shocking to me to see either of those guys not on this team on Tuesday. I agree with you. If he comes out on Saturday, and regardless of if it's in the first half, second half, regardless, if he puts up some decent numbers, I don't think he's going to find a way to get to the practice squad. I think there are teams out there that are hungry for wide receivers, even the Jets. I mean, who behind Garrett Wilson is on the Jets? Shavers could easily get signed by the Jets and have a more prominent role on that team. So I don't see a way that he is able to get chopped on Tuesday if he does and find a way back onto the special teams. It would be very shocking to me, but it'd also be very shocking to me to see if Buffalo keeps 6 wide receivers, because it rarely ever happens. They're usually in that 5 sweet spot. And of course they might do it with, Samuel's injury history and Shakir's still coming off of his ankle. So if there's a year that they're going to keep 6 wide receivers, it would be this year with Shavers having a really good camp and the injuries that were in that room. So I think I could see either way, and I wouldn't be shocked if he's cut, and I wouldn't be shocked if he's kept. And it truly is like, if he has a good game on Saturday, and that's one of the reasons I'll be watching, I could see them leaning more keeping him, because I think they're thinking, we're not going to get this guy back, and with the injuries in the room, he might be more valuable to us on the 53, even if that means losing somebody else that would have earned that 53 man spot.
You know what? I feel like right now that for him to make this team, they got to keep 6 receivers, because I do not think they're going to cut Elijah Moore, and Definitely don't think they're going to cut Curtis Samuel. Now, could they trade Samuel? Maybe we'll hit on that in a little bit. That would obviously would change things. Actually, two things would have to happen, and I'll get to the other thing in a second as well for him to make this roster. But I do feel like the other guys that we talked about, I think their fate's already been decided. I don't think his fate has been decided yet.
Agreed.
So it could go either way for him. The next one, and I'm pairing two guys together here, and this is the irony, when I was doing prep for this show, Dane Jackson / Jamarcus Ingram. And originally when I said, they had a lot to play for, because I feel like one of them are going to make the team. Now, maybe one of them are playing to see who might start week one, which is just crazy to me. Let's look at it. Let's look at it from both scenarios. The first scenario where Trey White is more of a scare than anything else. And let's just say he's going to be out. He's day to day. Let's say Sean McDermott says on Friday he's day to day. Scenario one. So you got Benford, you have Trey White, you have Taron Johnson, you have Dorian Strong, who's 100% making this football team. He's a core 4 special teams guy, 6th-round rookie. I do not think he's in the mix to start. I know Strong will make this team before Ingram or Jackson.
Agreed.
But I think Jackson or Ingram would both start before Dorian Strong, if that makes sense to people listening. Anyway, his spot's on this team. So that would be 4. Cam Lewis or Jordan Hancock, whichever one you want to play corner. The other one could be safety. It doesn't matter because they both are doing both. But let's just say one of them. So that's 5. That's 5 corners right there. And I'm not counting Max Harrison right now. You're going to keep 6. It's Dane Jackson versus Jamarcus Ingram. Dane Jackson has starting experience. Jamarcus Ingram is a really versatile piece, man. He's good on special teams. He can play outside, play some slot. He's played dime safety before. He knows his system. He's been with this organization, a handful of years now. One of those guys are fighting to make the team. Now, if Trey White, if the injury is significant, I think both of them make the team, and it becomes a battle to see who starts, which is funny. One last thing before I turn it back to you, because again, I was really doing my homework here. And I'm like, all right, well, if Max starts on IR, I think one of these guys for sure makes it, and maybe both. And then I was like, if Max doesn't go to IR and you count him, and then now you got 6 without either of these guys, one of them better really impress to make them want to keep that extra 11th probably defensive back. I don't know, dude. What do you think? I mean, so much feels like it's on the line right now, of course, with so much uncertainty as well. So it's hard to give too much insight, but I don't know, man. What do you think right now? Ingram, Dane Jackson. Let's just leave it at that for them too right now.
Yeah, when I did my initial 53 and I updated, after each game, I still didn't have either of them making the 53. But with the Trey White news and the possibility of Patton Hairston, one of them's probably making this team. And if Trey White's more injury, it could be both. And I'm looking at it, I'm like, I feel like it would be Dane Jackson that they would keep. But to me, I would keep Ingram for all the things that you mentioned, how versatile he is. But I feel like they would just lean towards keeping Dane Jackson because of his experience, because he started in this system. You haven't really seen Ingram take on that more responsibility type of role. So personally, for me, it would be Ingram, no questions asked, but I think it would end up being Dane Jackson based on the history and based on him playing in this system and all those other things. But yeah, it could easily be neither of them. I mean, it really could be based on the health and based on the numbers. You already went through them all. It seems unlikely that they would both make it if all the guys are ready to go week 1, or even if they don't want to, even if Harrison's not ready for week 1 and they don't want to put him on the IR because they think there's going to be back week 2 or 3, or even just want the practices. I could honestly see both of them not making it. And if that's the case, there would be a practice squad open, and maybe that's when you just elevate them for one of the games because you got 4 games to do it. So I could also see that being a factor as well, where maybe you're able to sneak one of them down to the practice squad. And if Harrison's not ready or Trey White isn't fully healthy for week 1 and you don't want to push it, you elevate them for one game, even though it happens to be Baltimore. So it might not be the one that you want to elevate and start a practice squad player for, but it might be the way you are because of these number crunches.
for what it's worth, before the Trey White news here, and again, we're for the 10th time, we're completely uncertain as we record this. I didn't have it on the podcast, but each week I've been doing my own, in my notes, like my own projection, roster projection. Hyatt Ingram making the team and Dane Jackson getting cut. I think Dane Jackson is a very weak training camp and preseason, but I feel like this changes it because now experience might become more important if he's actually got to go out there and play early in the season. But again, it's the whole Max Harrison thing too. Max Harrison's not going to play week one. It's just a matter if he's on IR or not. And the reason why I bring so again, the only reason why I bring him up is because is he taking a 53-man roster spot or not? I don't know. But here's what I do know. It's a hugely important game this week, I think. How they've looked at practice, which we're not privy to all week, and culminated by how they look on Saturday, I think is critical for both of them. Two other guys here. Kind of different positions, but I got them lumped together because I think one of them are going to make this team. And that's Braden Codrington and Laviska Shenault. And with Codrington, I think he might have the edges. You think that he's going to be the returner. I'll say this. If he is the returner, he's purely a returner because I do not think he's an NFL caliber defensive back. I don't. One of the funniest things watching that all 22 back was a formation when you realize, and this is when you realize one team's trying to win and one team don't give a shit because Codrington's one-on-one with DJ Moore. Like that can't happen. But anyway, so you got him and he is a pure returner. He's like your 11th or 12th defensive back on the field. Laviska Shenault, I'm intrigued by because he has returned kicks. He's returned the first kick both games in the preseason. He has been a gunner on special teams. He's played on every special team. Against the Giants in the second half, he did catch that nice 2-point conversion pass. He is a former second-round pick. The Bills do like those former high picks who, flame out with other teams. They like to give them opportunities. We've seen it a few times now. And personally, I give the edge to Shenault. But now I kind of circle back to Tyrell Shavers. We just said, or at least I said, I think the Bills would have to keep 6 to keep Shavers. Well, if they keep 6, and what if Shenault makes this team? Are they keeping 7 receivers? With Shenault being, primarily the special team specialist or whatever, but technically a receiver as well. I don't know. I think Shenault making this team means that both Shavers and Codrington don't make this team. But I wouldn't bet against that either. I'm really, you could tell by my voice, man. I'm intrigued. I am intrigued by Laviska Shenault, PK from the Buffalo Sports Collective. I guess that's what I'm getting at right now. This is a battle, and I don't think it's over yet either.
Well, first off, I can't believe he's not even 30. He's like 27 years old. I thought he was much older than that. But secondly, when they made the signing, I was like, this is just a depth signing. And, it's kind of like the Chase Claypool last year. He's just going to come in, be another camp body, but he's actually impressed. And like you said, the amount of work that he's put on his special teams, I think gives him the edge over Codrington, even though Codrington was the go-to guy last year. He's also got experience with their special teams coach. So I think that gives them the edge here. But that's why it's going to be interesting to watch the game on Saturday because these are still the unanswered questions on, okay, that position's still wide open. And then you also brought up the factor that, I didn't think of until you just made it clear in my brain. If he makes this team, I don't think Shavers does because I don't see there's any way in hell that they're keeping 7 wide receivers, even though Shenault is like a special teams guru. But it is going to be very interesting to see, does he get the first return again on Saturday? If he does, I think it's more of a lock that he's making the team pending anything crazy that happens on Saturday. So that's why people like us and people that really love the Bills and people that cover the team and so on and so forth, that's why they're going to be very interested in watching this game on Saturday because of the so many unanswered questions. And I think Shenault versus Codrington is one of the bigger ones out there, especially with all the changes to the return game this year. It's going to be I think you're right with it. Chenault is in the lead right now, but Codrington could earn his spot back just based on prior history. But I think it's Chenault's game to lose here.
And, and what is just an endless game of roster gymnastics. Well, it's like, all right, well, Chenault can make this team. Whopper Shavers is out. But what happens if the Bills trade Curtis Samuel?
Yep.
Or if the Bills cut Elijah Moore by some chance, and then Shavers is still making this roster. That's why I go back to Tyrell Shavers and say how he's looking this week. I still think it's undecided is going to go a long way. So there's a lot of possibilities there. The last guy that I had on our list, and then I'm sneaking two in because I'm going to lump them together as well. But I had Chase Lunt on our list, a 6th-round rookie offensive lineman. He's had an up and down camp. I thought he looked excellent against the Giants. In fact, he played like 20-something pass reps, didn't even allow a pressure. Last week against Chicago, it was a disaster game for him. In fairness, they had him playing some guard. He's never really played guard. Aaron Cromer loves those versatile backup offensive linemen. On the fence, I think in terms of talent and skill in regards to the competition to make the roster, I think he would definitely be on the outside looking in, but I'm factoring in him being exposed to waivers. Teams are always trying to hunt down, he might not be a top 9 offensive lineman in Buffalo, but he might be that 8th or 9th lineman in Seattle or Arizona, or a team like that. Point being is you're not guaranteed to get him back. If you want to develop this guy over the next year or two and you cut him now and put him on waivers, you might not get him. Wyatt Teller, he got traded. Don't get me wrong. But I'm saying guys who are developmental guys, they go on to other teams and they become great. I mean, it's a kind of a shitty comparison, but you get what I'm saying. So I think him having if he looks good, whether he'll probably play some tackle or play some guard, he's going to play a lot on Saturday. It's going to make it a lot tougher because he's going to put some game tape on film. It's going to make it a lot tougher for the Bills to move on from him and be confident that they could get him back in the practice squad. So for that reason, that's why I got Chase Lunt on this list.
Yeah, and even if he plays amazing on Saturday and he puts that on film, that doesn't mean that they still go and waive him on the 53. We've seen so many trades this week. He could be exposed and maybe Buffalo sends out, okay, we know we're not going to get him back to the practice squad. Let's get something for him. Send us a 7th. Maybe send a 7th and him out and get a 6th. So I wouldn't completely rule that out as well, especially if they are confident there's no way we're going to be able to get him back to the practice squad. Somebody's going to want to claim this after 2 really good games on film if he does have a good game on Saturday. So I do think that's another name to watch because, like you mentioned, they're probably not going to play any of the starters. They're probably not going to play any of the meaningful backups. It's going to be the guys that are on the bubble or the guys that they're probably going to make cuts, and they're just giving these guys another shot to put more game film out there to other teams. If he has a really good game, I would not rule out a Brandon Beane type of move to move out a piece that he's not confident that he's going to be able to get back for a piece that he can use for the future.
Last 2, I'm actually going to throw this, I'm going to throw a curveball at you and throw them on the list. So I didn't really think about it, but Cedric Van Granger has not practiced this camp at all. He's not going to play a preseason snap. He was still not practicing today on Thursday. He's starting the season on either PUP or IR. He's not going to be out in the week 1 active roster. I just don't see that happening. Well, so you look at the backups. You got Alec Anderson for sure. He's a lock. You got Ryan Vandermark for now. I think he would be a lock. Tylen Grable. He's been having concussion issues, but he's been practicing red non-contact, but he's practicing, so he's good. He's close. So he's a lock. That's 3. I think they're keeping 9. Chase Long could be that 4th, but also I would say Kendrick Green, who could play interior, backup center. I mean, SVP's a backup center right now. Alec Anderson could play some center too, but Green could play center. Or Mike Edwards, not the free agent bust Mike Edwards from the Chiefs last year. Offensive lineman Mike Edwards, who's quietly had a pretty strong training camp in preseason. If they think just Chase Lunt is just not ready no matter what, and they're willing to potentially lose him if that's what ends up happening, maybe Green or Edwards could still have a chance to make this roster. Maybe their fate hasn't already been decided.
Yeah, I'm looking at it now. I currently got green and yellow, which means he's on the bubble, and I got
Hmm?
Mike Edwards in green, which means he's on the team right now. So
Yeah,
that to me right now, I got Edwards making the team, but Lunt I also have in yellow. So it's probably going to be one of those three that
yeah.
makes the team, and then it comes down to are you willing to? I think there's more of a chance that you would be able to get Mike Edwards down to the practice squad, even though he might carry more now value to the team, if that makes sense, because
It makes
Lunt
a lot of
is still
sense.
developmental player. So I think it's more likely that if it's between the two and they really like Lunt, I think he makes the team and you're able to sneak Edwards down there. I don't think it's going to go in reverse. So right now, I lean Edwards, but it can change come Sunday night.
Do you think there's any realistic possibility that we see a trade with the Bills before Tuesday? Maybe for roster reasons, also for some cap saving reasons. I got three candidates here I'm going to run by you and everybody else. And two of them kind of relate to what we've been talking about in terms of the roster. Curtis Samuel is the first and the obvious one. Which, by the way, is worth noting. He has been ramping up at practice the last couple of days. And I don't remember if it was Joe Brady or if it was McDermott, but talked about him having fresh legs. They like the way he's looked. Look, he's not getting cut. He's got value, all right? And we saw some of it late last season. Let's not forget that AFC Championship game, that big fourth down catch. They like Curtis Samuel, okay? And maybe ultimately, as stupid as this sounds coming out of my mouth right now, maybe Curtis Samuel missing all camp in the preseason while he's gotten healthy could actually benefit the Bills in the regular season, as dumb as that might sound to people right now listening. Anyway, cutting him's not an option. They would have to eat a shitload of dead cat. It is an option. It's just not going to happen. Trading him, though, if the Bills can find a trade partner, they can get rid of $7.3 million in cap space right now. Now, they might have to give up, say, Samuel and a sixth to get a seventh back because you need to entice a team to take on that money. But there are some receiver needy teams right now looking around at receivers, so I would not discount that. He's one. A.J. Epinesa is another one. You could, if you were to trade him, you could get $6.2 million in cap savings this year. You look at the Bills' edge rushers right now. And I'd say early in the season, you really don't want to trade him because you're going to be ramping up Bosa slowly. And then, of course, you got Groot, Epinesa. Michael Hoyt's going to be gone for the first 6 games. Then you got Javon Sullivan, and you got a rookie, Landon Jackson, who's looked really kind of iffy. So far. But still, $6.2 million could be a lot to save. Maybe he's a part of a piece in a bigger deal. Y'all know what I'm talking about. It ain't going to happen. But anyway. And then the last one, not a big deal, but Ryan Vandermark. The Bills are notorious for flipping guys reserves like Ryan Vandermark. They could save $1 million in cap space, and they get a draft pick back. Brandon Bean loves those. And now this conversation about, Chase Lunt and Green and Edwards, instead of one of those three, maybe two of those three end up making a team because they end up dealing Ryan Vandermark. And if you feel strong enough that Tylen Grable could be your swing tackle, you're much more likely to do that. That sounds like 3 pretty reasonable scenarios, right?
Yeah, out of those three, I think Vandermark would be the most likely candidate just because of the money situation. I might be on an island by myself, but I actually am excited to see Curtis Samuel once again this year. I don't think he's going to have a big role. I don't think they're counting on him to have, even 50 catches, but I do think that he can play a role with this offense that I think is needed because Shakir's a slot guy right now. Coleman, yes, while he's having a really good camp and really good preseason, he still needs to prove it on the field. Palmer, he's been quiet, but I'm excited to see him. Beyond that, I mean, I think even why am I blanking on his name? Brady. Sorry. I don't know why I completely blanked on his name. He said he's got a 1 through 3 right now, and he's looking for the rest of the players. And I think that opening is for Samuel. Everything that we're hearing on him ramping it back up, he sounds good. He sounds fast. He sounds like he could be that player that Buffalo brought in last year. So I'm actually excited to see him. But if they do trade him, I won't be broken up about it because he's one of those players that they paid not a ton of money to, but some money that right now is coming back to haunt them because they're right on that cap edge where they do have to make some moves to free up a little bit of cap space going into the regular season. So if they do find a trade partner, I'm not going to be broken up about him leaving, but I am excited to see him on the field. AJ Epinesa, the numbers right there with Michael Hoyt. If Michael Hoyt was not suspended, I could see AJ Epinesa being one of those casualties of more value out there for teams that always want defensive edge. That while he's not great, he's a good rotational piece out there.
Yeah.
But Ryan Vandermark, like you mentioned, if Lunt plays really well, if Grable's able to come back and they trust him enough, I could see Vandermark being one of those trade pieces. While it won't open up a ton of cap space, I do think that he could be one of those ones that's, he's great, but we don't want to expose these younger players that we see the future for them to come up where they don't have to play a big time role right now. We don't want to lose them for a guy that, he can come in and start, but he's nothing special. So I could see Vandermark being one of those trade pieces that goes out in one of those deals right before the 53 is due.
You mentioned Joe Brady and the top three. Also, Joe Brady said that he loves 8 receivers on the team. I think a little full of shit right there, to be honest with you. But
very coach talk.
very, very, very coach talk. Joe Brady's been pretty entertaining actually to watch on the Hard Knocks these last few weeks. I would like to see them keep Samuel because I do believe he has value. But what I will tell you is, might be putting my foot in my mouth because maybe he gets cut in the next week. But Elijah Moore has been very mediocre this summer. Let's just call it what it is. That said, every practice you hear about, he's taken. Now, granted, Khalil Shakir has been out for several weeks, but he's always working with Josh Allen. It wouldn't surprise me that despite the fact that he's been quiet this preseason and most of training camp, that Elijah Moore ends up having the type of season that we thought maybe he was capable of having when he first signed with the Bills to begin with. But for that to happen, I think Curtis Samuel needs to be gone, or somebody's going to have to go down for more to get that opportunity because you brought it up. Those top 3 guys are locked in. Samuel or Moore, one of those guys is going to be the 4th, and whoever's not is probably not even going to play. So, like I said, it would take somebody leaving. But I have more confidence in Elijah Moore than most people do. That said, it would not stun me if they say, yeah, but you know what? We got to get some special teams value out of our bottom of our receivers, and they go with Shavers ahead of Elijah Moore. That wouldn't stun me either. Last point here, and then I'm going to let you go. Kind of go back to the beginning with the secondary, but not the corners. Cole Bishop has turned into one of the biggest stories, I think, of the summer for the Buffalo Bills. I expected a training camp battle between him, Hamlin, and Forrest. Never happened. Day after day after day, it was Cole Bishop out there with the ones. I'm like, all right, there's your starter. Looking not great, but looking fine. He made some plays, got beat a few times, didn't look lost out there before the quad, didn't look spectacular either. He looked like a perfectly okay starter, okay? But more athletic than the alternative. And you know who, I'm trying to go a whole episode without mentioning him by name. But then he gets hurt and misses a pretty decent amount of time and played 12 reps against Chicago. Apparently not very well because Sean McDermott was not too happy with him. And some of it got taken out of context because we all heard I'm still looking for the safety with Taylor Rapp. If you only heard that, you'd be like, Sean is shitting on Cole Bishop. Not really the case. He also spoke highly of him and, talked up his confidence, all that coach speak bullshit. But I will say, he's playing Saturday. Let's just put it that way. You could expect Cole Bishop to play against Tampa Bay. If he's locked in as your starter for sure, he shouldn't be playing then because he's not playing other starters. So where are you at with Cole Bishop right now as we're just a couple weeks before the season? Because it is downright confusing to me.
To me, he's my starter. And you drafted him in the 2nd round for a reason. Yes, the injuries have hampered his development, no question about it. I mean, last year was a nightmare getting hurt. He missed so much critical time. This year, same situation. He missed so many critical snaps that I think they were banking on him being ready to go with Taylor Rapp. And I think that's why they didn't make any moves for that room this whole offseason besides Forrest that didn't end up working out. I think to me, you have to go Bishop because you already know what you have behind him right now. And yes, Hancock has had a really good camp, but I don't think they're going to want to rely on a young guy like that to instantly go into the starter's position. I think you need to give Bishop 4, 5, 6 games alongside Taylor Rapp because I think he gives you the highest ceiling and the player that you drafted him to be. Hamlin, you know what he is. You already know what you're going to get with him. Bishop, you truly don't really know exactly what you're going to get from him. I think he has the highest ceiling for that type of position. He's got the frame for it. He's got the make for it. I think he can be the type of safety that Sean McDermott and Bobby Babich want back there to pair with Taylor Rapp. I think you need to give him those opportunities out there, whether he earned it or not. I think that's a different question. You even look back at Terrell Bernard, who missed that entire training camp, and then you're wondering, okay, who's going to be that linebacker? And it's like, hey, it's Taylor Bernard, even though he's been hurt that whole camp. I think you need to give it to Bishop, let him see on the field what it is, and then if it's not working, then you can go to plan B. Right now, he's my plan A until proven otherwise. And to me, that's not happening in camp. That's not happening because of injuries. That's happening because I need to see it in actually game time with him and Rapp paired together. And it might take a bit. It might look pretty rough the first few games because of how injured he has been and the very limited cohesive units that him and Rapp have had. The days of Poyer and Hyde are long gone because they could just instantly know what each other's going to do. It's going to take those two a bit of time to get used to, okay, if he's doing this, I know what I have to do. If I'm doing this, I know he's going to have my back here. So I think you got to give him a good chunk of games to play together before you can really rule out, okay, he's a bust pick. He's not just there. He's not going to work out before we get to that level. So to me, he's starting at least through September and October before I make any big time judgment of he's just not that guy.
Yeah, man, I agree with you 100%. I think if he's healthy and he's healthy now and he stays healthy, doesn't get a physical setback, and yet DeMar Hamlin still starts week 1, I'm not sure that you come back from that.
Yes.
That could ruin a player's confidence. And if you only go to him because DeMar gets hurt or he gets benched for poor play or whatever, I don't know what you got from Cole Bishop. I would rather Cole Bishop go out there, look terrible, get benched, and now you know that, hey, this dude just isn't ready. You already know what your floor is with DeMar Hamlin. You know what your ceiling is with DeMar Hamlin. There's nothing he's going to do that's going to surprise you. And we already know that. Cole Bishop, sink or swim. You know, he could go out there and stink it up. Or he could go out there and make some plays that the other guy just is not capable of making. And if you don't do that, I think you start to ruin, you mess with the guy's head mentally, and I think that could have lasting ramifications. If you do that, I'd say there's a better chance you have the next Boogie Basham on your hands, a second-round pick that in less than 2 years was done, basically, essentially, then you have a guy who, he's going to learn from this and get better. I don't buy that. If he's healthy, he's out there, and he's been the starter the entire time before he got hurt, I think you got to let him start the season. And I'll end this by referencing a quote from the great Joe Biscaglia from The Athletic, who was writing about this in his column. And he wrote something that really resonated with me on why he thinks Cole Bishop will and should start the season. And Joe said, benching a player they've spent the offseason planning to be a starter after only 11 snaps in a preseason game in which he was the only projected starter on the field would be an incredibly impulsive decision from an organization whose top 2 decision makers are generally averse to impulsive decisions. I've chalked this up to the Bills trying to get more out of him with the message through the media play. Sounds right, doesn't it?
Yeah, I'd rather know what you got in September and October than find out what you got in November and December. So I that's why I think you got to give him the start and go from there. If he falls flat on his face, then you know early on and you can make corrective action. It's better to learn early on than late in the season when Hamlin goes out, gets hurt, doesn't perform up to it, and then Bishop goes out and he's even worse. So I'd rather learn earlier in the season. Yeah, I completely agree with what he said.
100%. And the last point about Bishop is you want to have some optimism, I thought he played pretty well in the AFC Championship game, when a lot of guys out there did not. So you can have that. That athleticism is on this roster between Cole Bishop at safety and Max Saracen, who sooner or later will be out there at corner. Anyway, all right, this is going to do it for this episode. If you're not doing so already, make sure you follow PK on Twitter at PK_BSC. Dude, you've been on the show enough now that I don't need to write it down or I have it memorized. I used to always struggle with it because of the underscore. But anyway, make sure you check out Buffalo Sports Collective. I've said it a million times. It is truly, legitimately one of the most under the radar, really, really good all around Buffalo sports podcasts out there. And especially so if you are a Buffalo Bandits fan. Nobody covers them better than PK and Phil do over at Buffalo Sports Collective. I appreciate you as always, buddy.
No worries. Take care.
All right, guys. Thank you so much for watching, for listening. Like I said, no live show following the stupid game on Saturday night, but I will be live Sunday, 9 p.m. Joe from Queens on the video side next Monday on the podcast. Talk to you guys then.